Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar series, Navigating the Cloud. My name is Michelle Nerlinger, and I'm your moderator today. This is the second of a series of webcasts that will explore the most critical aspects of moving to SaaS. Today's webcast will describe how evolving your applications to services for delivery via the cloud has a dramatic and unavoidable effect on corporate culture, business processes, and customer expectations. Our presenters today will discuss how software publishers can plan for and address these challenges quickly and effectively to achieve maximum operational efficiency, customer satisfaction, and profitability. At the end of this presentation, you will be confident in your ability to adapt your business at cloud speed. Our presenters today are Bruce Guptil and Mike West with Saugatuck Technology and Todd Steel with SafeNet. Bruce is SVP and Head of Research for Saugatuck, and Mike West is Vice President and Distinguished Analyst at Saugatuck. Todd Steel is Product Manager for SafeNet Software Rights Management Solutions. Just before we get started, I would like to remind you that questions can be submitted at any time during the live webcast. Simply click the questions button on your screen and enter your question. We will address all questions at the end of our webcast during the Q&A. Also, if you would like to join the conversation on Twitter, please use the hashtag shown on the screen now, #softwarelicensing. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. Todd, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everyone. My name is Todd Steel, Senior Product Manager here at SafeNet, and I wanted to give you a little background introduction before we dove into the meat of the program today on who we are and how did we get to where we're at. So what we've been doing over the last year and a half is really been investigating both how our existing customer base is moving to the cloud, as well as how SaaS providers who are currently in the cloud have moved there successfully and what type of challenges they've been having to address. What we found is 6 major problems. We distilled all the information down to 6 major problems that we discovered and talked about and uncovered in the first webinar of this series. Those are enforcing contract compliance can be really costly, and not just costly from pricing point of view, but also costly from a customer management point of view and customer satisfaction. That most SaaS offerings out there have limited feature bundling. They're really offered at a flat rate subscription, and as consumers, you consume a all or nothing type of subscription with most offerings in the cloud today. When an ISV wants to go repackage how they're bringing that service to the market and offer different bundlings, it's very costly in both time to market and engineering development. How consumers are able to consume those services in the market are really restrictive and simple subscription-based and doesn't offer many different variety of ways that consumers want to consume those services in the cloud. And that usage tracking and reporting is really manually and complex and really tailored towards usage-based billing and not really tailored towards improving the product line. And the operational processes surrounding how ISVs go to market in the cloud really lends itself to have augmented business lines and augmented operational processes and systems that aren't consolidated and provide the vendor and the consumer a single solitary point of view to the licensing system. So we distill those challenges into six main areas. The first being having the right service agreement compliance and having the appropriate contracts that are both understandable from a consumer point of view and trackable from a vendor point of view. Having the versatility in your product line to really meet all the different varying market segments that you want to reach. Having the business agility to move at cloud speed and move fast enough to meet the demands in the cloud. Having the right sophisticated license models. Today, there's really premature licensing models and business models that are being offered, and as those markets mature, being able to offer those license models. We accidentally moved here. Having the right business intelligence, having the right tools that offer you business intelligence to optimize your product and improve it, and having the right back office tools to have a consolidated view both from a vendor's point of view and a consumer's point of view. So what's today's focus? So we're in the second of the series, and today we're really going to be focusing on business agility and back office support and how moving at cloud speed really affects a software vendor as they move to the cloud. So without further ado, I'll pass the microphone over to Bruce from Saugatuck to lead us down this journey. Bruce, it's all yours.
Well, thanks very much, Todd. Thank you very much. And let's see here. Let's see if I have actually received control. I have. Good morning and afternoon to everybody, and thank you very much for joining us. We're very pleased to be here and to be a part of the event. This is our second event that we're doing. We're involved in with our friends at SafeNet, and it's always a pleasure to work with them and with the audience. Todd mentioned a couple of very important things that, if we boil everything down, really get to the heart of what it takes to move to the cloud, to move to SaaS, to move at cloud speed. And it's really about the ability to manage, because whether you are building an entirely new company to become a SaaS or cloud-based applications provider, or if you're migrating from an existing model, you're going to be changing everything in the company. Every aspect of your organization is going to change. And the bottom line there is that you're going to need help. You're going to need help to manage these changes. You're going to need help to coordinate. You're going to need help to deliver some of the basic stuff. And so what we're going to do today, over the course of the next 30 to 35 minutes, is show you how everything changes and really talk to you about, well, why should you even bother? What are the advantages? Touching on some issues that we presented a few weeks ago in the first of the series of webinars. So we're going to tell you why bother. It's worth it, trust us. We're going to look at the challenges. What are the challenges that need to be managed, or what are the areas of challenge and the kinds of, let's say, point challenges that are going to pop up and you'll need to be aware of and be prepared for in order to make it through. And then how? How do you manage? How do you work your way through this? How do you build this business and make it work profitably and sustainably? And frankly, there's one key that I'll let everybody in on right now, and that key is the need and ability to partner with providers outside of what you can and are comfortable doing. And so that's what we're going to start off with. We're going to take first a quick look at, what's going on and why should you bother with this. If it's really going to change every aspect of your company, and research with more than 10,000 executives worldwide over the past few years that we've done, that Saugatuck has done, has really helped us understand what it is that people want to buy, and therefore what it is that software vendors, whether traditional ISVs or cloud-based or hybrid organizations, need to provide. And it gives us terrific insight into the business models and the profitability, revenue sustainability, and long-term viability. What you see in front of you right now is some relatively recent research that we put together comparing in the blue what we call a market basket of SaaS or cloud-based software providers, looking at their total revenue growth over the last several years and through this year, compared to similar revenue growth numbers from traditional on-premise ISVs. And obviously, we've gone through a wrenching economic change or series of changes and challenges in recent months, actually over the last year to year and a half. But just as obviously, the revenue growth of the ISVs, the cloud-based, the SaaS providers, is significantly more positive than what we see or what we have seen and what we expect to see with the traditional ISVs. Now, it's pretty obvious from looking at this chart that the overall raw percentage growth has declined for both the traditional ISVs and SaaS providers. This makes sense, especially for SaaS, because there's been an extremely high series of initial growth rates. It was new, the beginning base was small, but again, notice, even in decline, the SaaS revenue growth remains well above the traditional software vendor category, software vendor growth rates, especially during this worst financial recession in decades. And we see this growth being maintained and increasing for SaaS providers above and ahead of what traditional ISVs are able to deliver over the course of the next several years. There's one reason to bother for moving to SaaS: revenue, profitability, and continued growth. The other reason, and the reason driving part of the first reason, is that the customers, your buyers, are moving toward SaaS. They're moving toward cloud extremely rapidly. This chart represents our latest survey data, incorporating more than 700, almost 800 respondents earlier this year, late last year, that shows us that, by the year end 2014, 50% of all new software purchased is expected to be cloud-based. Now, you could look at the other side of the coin or see the glass half full if you're a traditional on-premise software vendor and say, yes, but 50% of new software will still be on-premise based, traditional based, and that's correct. But we don't see the SaaS growth slowing down while we do see the on-premise growth slowing. And if you extend these arrows out another couple of years, by what you see is a very rapid overtaking of traditional software by SaaS, by cloud-based solutions. And if 50% of what your customers are buying over the course of the next 4 years is cloud-based, that's a pretty good indicator that there's a good, viable, and hopefully sustainable business model for you in the cloud. But again, it's a lot of changes. It's a lot of activity, and it has to be done at cloud speed. And what we mean by cloud speed is not necessarily hurry up and get everything done. Todd mentioned business agility, and business agility is a key to making this stuff work, to being a successful and long-term successful provider of cloud-based software and services. This diagram is something that Mike West and I, actually Mike originally put together, and the two of us have tweaked over the course of the last couple of years, that shows how the provider side on the left continues to change and then enable and drive changes on the user side, which turn around and require more change, more capability, and more growth from the provider side. In short, it's an environment of constant innovation requiring constant management of every aspect of the business. And in the next few slides, we'll get into the what these aspects of the business are. But for now, what we're trying to get across, and again, if there are any questions on this, we'll entertain them at the end of the formal presentation. When it comes to the software business, when it comes to your business, cloud speed is less of an actual speed and more of a condition of constant responsiveness to markets, customers, partners, and every other aspect of your ecosystem. Solutions are acquired and deployed more rapidly, so payback is achieved more rapidly or desired more rapidly. Ongoing enhancements are implemented more rapidly. In fact, they are increasingly required. It is extremely rare that a SaaS customer or a SaaS user base does not require constant innovation, constant improvement on a semi-annual basis from its providers. It's a more fluid, more flexible, more cloudy-like environment for the buyer, for the user, and the provider. So what this means for you as a provider is significantly improved, significantly changed abilities to meet and manage all aspects of the business, because customers' expectations are constantly rising while your competitors are constantly innovating to build and maintain market advantages. So what has to be managed? What has to be paid attention to? Again, every aspect of your business, current and future. We've broken it down into three basic areas of the software business: technology, organization, and operations. And I'm going to rely on my colleague Mike West to walk us through some of these bullet points, and I will fill in where I can as well. But what we first want to make everyone clear about is that it's not just the technology. It's not just building or architecting or re-architecting an offering or a series of offerings to be native to the cloud or to be useful and cost-effectively and efficiently utilized, deployed, and managed by your whoever your platform provider is and by your customers. That is, of course, critical. All three of these areas are critical. But technology is not the only area where your business is going to change. Mike, what I'd like to do is hand it to you for a bit and get your insights as to how, what some of these bullet points translate to in terms of real-world management challenges, and I will pipe up as appropriate. I'm hoping that Mike has his mute button on.
Well, let's start with technology. The key management challenges just to the right of the technology box include formulating technology strategy and managing it in an ongoing way. Architecture and platform selection and exploitation, solution quality, and this means both functionality and ease of use, ongoing enhancements in that. Infrastructure selection and implementation, this means where is it going to run and who's going to help you run it. Ongoing R&D management, and integration and customization. Now, I'd like to drill down just a little bit into these areas, Bruce and everybody. First of all, let's realize that the platform that you choose, your solution architecture, is critical. And depending on which path you take to the cloud, whether it's virtualization or single tenancy, multi-tenancy, or some combination of these, the platform you select should position you to be responsive to change and to respond quickly. In the near term, we find that a lot of organizations make mistakes in choosing a solution that may get them to the cloud quickly, but prevent them from responding at cloud speed. Single tenant and virtualization-based solutions may deliver a billable solution in less than 18 months, the 18 months it will take to deliver a multi-tenant solution, but the cost and the time involved in implementing enhancements, for instance, a more transparent user interface, ongoing performance enhancements, real-time integration APIs, user-driven customization. These things, you're going to need in order to keep pace with the competition, will certainly be more expensive in a virtualized solution or in a single-tenant solution than it would be in a multi-tenant solution. In many cases, will be simply impossible. Now, we've polled SaaS buyers over the past 6 years, and they don't seem to care at all, or at least very much, about multi-tenancy at the root of a cloud solution. So the decision here is not designed to drive customer demand. But on the other hand, cloud providers with multi-tenant solutions are more responsive and show a lower cost of operations. This drives profits to the bottom line. In a case study we did on Concur, one of the real cloud transition successes, CEO Steve Singh noted the following advantages to multi-tenancy: ability to upgrade the service with new features without impacting the core technology. Are being used or not used, and provide feedback to customers based on real usage. And finally, the ability to deploy the application with no real training required. So given the superior advantages cited by Steve Singh, we urge you to consider whether to implement a single tenant or a virtualized solution as a temporary solution, but in the background prepare a multi-tenant platform because moving at cloud speed goes well beyond the solution platform architecture, and it includes R&D management for innovation and efficiency and solution development and enhancement and extending solution customization capability and the ease of integration with other cloud and on-premise solutions. Performance and the reliability and robustness of the cloud solution figure in here and in a big way. Let me hand it back to Bruce for his comments on the technology issues.
Thanks, Mike. Just one other thing, as we note on the bottom of this chart on this particular page, and you'll see this repeating theme over the next couple of charts as well, the next couple of slides. We have two areas of management need, if you will, in each of these categories, technology and the upcoming organizational and operational challenge areas as well. One is things that you have to manage internally, things that you have to manage with your business. The other is the buyer expectations. One big area of change that catches a lot of ISVs by surprise is the level of buyer expectation or the type of buyer expectation as you move to a cloud-based environment. The responsiveness, the ease of use, the performance, the ability to integrate, configure, and customize, and to do that on an ever-improving basis. These are very, very important aspects that need to be considered as you move your technology plan and strategy toward a cloud-based solution or portfolio. What we've been able to, I hate to say get away with, but what customers have been satisfied with over the years does not translate very quickly or very well to a cloud-based environment. The cloud-based environment is all about, let's call it instant gratification or quick gratification, as well as increased customer involvement. Community-based involvement by SaaS users, by cloud-based users, is a terrific thing to take advantage of, to put in place, and to help contribute to your technology shifts, change, focus, growth, and strategy. Salesforce is a terrific example of how the community can help to expand what you do, shape your technology strategy, and, of course, change how you develop and manage your business. Okay. Let's take a look at some of the organizational challenges, some of the second area. Again, every aspect of the company changes. Every aspect of of what you do and how you operate changes when you move from being a traditional software company to being a cloud-based company. And again, I'll defer to Mike, as Mike has done a lot more of the work in this area than I have. But by way of introduction, everybody who moves from the cloud not only changes what they do and how they do it, but how it's managed, how it's grouped, how it's organized, where the resources come from. You will find as you move toward the cloud, as you embrace and expand, if you will, your cloud-driven capabilities or cloud-oriented capabilities, that your organization will change in a lot of different ways. There will be new skill sets required. There will be different skill sets required. But a lot of what you require will be available through cloud-based organizations and vendor partnerships. Mike, I don't want to take this in too many different directions, so let me hand it back to you to walk us through some of these organizational challenges that our ISVs are going to face.
Thanks, Bruce. Well, look, moving to the cloud is going to affect every aspect of an ISV's organization, from the management practices to finance to sales to customer support. For example, the entire sales skill set, the process, and the compensation plan will need to change as you move from selling and supporting a software product to software as a service. I mean, it's more than sales as well. I mean, many ISVs moving to the cloud have found it absolutely necessary to create a separate organization involving not just direct sales, but also channel management, customer support, partner management, R&D, and IT that reports up to the IT. And this is separate from the legacy organization. Hybrid organizations have been out there with both cloud and on-premise offerings, and they face special challenges. as cloud buyer expectations are far more elevated in comparison. As we noted earlier in our case study on Cadient that was formerly called Pragmatech, the rebranded cloud company Cadient found it absolutely necessary to spin out their on-premise offerings under a subsidiary, which they then used third-party channels for, in order to create separate organizations responsive to different user expectations. And migrating existing customers to new cloud offerings was specifically managed in a three-step process. First, segmenting the on-premise customer base, identifying those who are most likely to migrate to the new platform. Second, offer pricing incentives to motivate customers who may or may not move and help them to understand their choice. And then third, finally, help them plan when and how to do the migration itself. Meanwhile, sales compensation had to be managed entirely differently for the cloud because commissions on recurring revenue streams from cloud solutions required a very different approach than for commissions on large upfront license agreements for the on-premise sales organization. And there were other key differences. One is the increased customer intimacy in the cloud, something often unanticipated by on-premise ISVs that migrate. For example, one vendor we spoke with, Positive, which is a point-of-sale vendor, for them the move to the cloud proved to be a much more proactive and intimate experience with customers in more frequent communications and on a first-name basis. So culturally, there are significant changes in customer expectations that the organization must be prepared not only to accommodate but encourage. The goals and the performance objectives of the cloud organization must be tuned to cloud speed, managed at cloud speed, and rewarded accordingly. Bruce?
Well, thanks, Mike. Now let's take a look at the last set of challenges, the operational challenges. One of the things about a cloud-oriented organization, a cloud-oriented software and services vendor, is that it's more and more difficult to look at specific areas of operation, of organization, of technology as separate. It's not as much linear and there's not as many things that fit so nicely into boxes over time as they might have in a traditional software development and sales and support environment. So, for example, operational challenges, or as one of our vendor clients put it, operationalizing the cloud means not just changing, adapting, growing, and shifting the culture, the organization, the way things are managed, the way things are compensated, not just the technology or the technologies and the internal skills and so on that are required, or the external skills that need to be brought in, but how it's all done. It's all very tightly intermeshed. A cloud solution is a promise, as we say at the top of this page, to deliver superior functionality, predictability, and responsiveness. I think we have a typo there. What this means is that the way you do things and how rapidly and accurately you do things becomes that much more important. Mike, did you have some examples or some points that you wanted to make in this slide?
Yeah, Bruce, I do. I mean, as Bruce pointed out, the SaaS or the cloud world is a different kind of business model. It's a service versus a product model of operation. So then, at its foundations, as Bruce termed it, it's a promise to the customer that you will deliver superior functionality, predictably and responsively. It's not just secure, robust, and dependable. It's about service excellence in all aspects that touch the customer. And that includes service level transparency, the availability of operational metrics, and a billing capability that provides the customer with data, inquiry capability, and dashboards for intuitive understanding of how they bill. Because profitability is in part based on the length and increasing depth of the customer relationship. You want to retain customers, you want to penetrate and radiate, land, and expand so retention-oriented practices are strongly recommended. Now, there are two ways to think about operations. There are the inward-facing and the outward-facing functions. Let's talk for a minute about the inward-facing functions. They must move at cloud speed. And that's in order to enable solutions management and support organizations to manage their customers proactively before complaints have a chance to appear. You know, a key to profitability is improved efficiency. As we cited before, Concur, in their experiences and those of other successful cloud companies, we've been told time and time again that the R&D function has an inward-facing responsibility to provide increasing efficiencies and enable via lower cost of operations to deliver steadily increasing profit margins. The key to success in a transaction-intensive cloud business is to constantly reduce unit costs. Not only does this expand margins for current customers, but for future customers as well. And this means you have to leverage technology in order to scale. If you have to leverage people to scale, then you cannot reduce costs. So at least 50% of R&D spending at Concur, for example, was focused on operational improvements, increasing reducing customer onboarding time, making system updates with less customer disruption. So most ISVs have no experience with either the customer-facing or the inward-facing service responsibilities of the cloud provider. This is an entirely new set of competencies that ISVs moving to the cloud must acquire and improve to be competitive. Moreover, the rather explosive growth of this market makes finding the experience and expertise to develop and manage these capabilities a very high priority if an ISV is to make the transition to moving at cloud speed. Bruce?
Well, thanks, Mike. I want to offer one more data point to underscore the operational challenges and need to manage this stuff hang on a second, to underscore a couple of things, actually. Satisfaction is the bottom line to success. User-buyer satisfaction is the bottom line to success as a SaaS provider, as a cloud-based software and services provider. As Mike mentioned, renewal and retention are key. They're critical. You want to get in, you want to expand, you want to extend your presence, you want to extend the revenue base. And because you're not getting the traditional types of upfront licensing revenues that you once did, you need more and better ways to not only manage license revenues, but to develop and grow those license revenues. Our research over the last several years clearly links user satisfaction to retention and expansion rates. And we can show time and time again, example after example, how declining satisfaction over time leads to declining retention and renewal rates. Now, what we're not necessarily finding that customers, buyers, users are throwing out SaaS that they've been using. SaaS is very similar to almost any software that everybody's been using in business for decades now. Once it's in and becomes part of the business operations, it tends to stay. But it's also very, very easy for these buyers and users to add somebody new or to add something else or to add somebody else's offerings via a cloud or SaaS model. So while your operational speed, capabilities, and performance may not be bad enough to get somebody to throw you out, they could easily be bad enough to get somebody to open the door for other competitors who could come in and who have the capabilities, the responsibility, if you will, but more importantly, the relationships that enable them to operate, to manage, to operationalize their business and satisfy their customers at cloud speed. What this leads to is the need for partners. We have said a couple of times, and we do want to emphasize this, we don't know of any ISVs who have gone it alone. In fact, I can't think of any native SaaS companies who have completely built their own solution delivered, develop, support, and continue to grow the business without partners. And we've thrown in 4 relatively well-known brand name logos here to give you an idea of, it's not just because somebody is relatively small or relatively new to the market. The most established, what we call master brands in the world of software and services, need partnerships and recognize that they do. Each of these companies has brought in other companies to help them with the platform development, to help them with integration. They're obviously large enough to make some significant acquisitions to help as well, but they also rely very heavily on their huge networks of channel partners, developer partners, SIs, you name it. The channel strategies of each of these 4 master brands and any other one that we could possibly name are increasingly heavily focused on no longer just shoving, if you will, the master brand down the channel and out to customers and users, but pulling expertise and technology and experience and capabilities, skills back up the channel into these master brands to help them make it and to make it big and to use the cloud to maintain and improve their dominant positions. You have to find the right partners, and you have to find the right partners at the right time. What this means is you have to ask yourself 2 questions. And Mike, I'd actually like you to talk a little bit about this because this is a concept that you really helped to develop, especially in the work that we've been doing with our friends at SafeNet. But actually, before I go farther, why don't you take this slide and run with it? Mike, I don't think we can hear you. I don't know if the mute function is on or if there's a difficult connection.
No, I'm sorry. I think I'm in there now. Can you hear me clearly now?
We can, thank you.
Okay.
So we're at chart 14, asking ourselves 2 questions. What lies at the center of the value we bring to market, and where can we find partners to, if cost effectively, efficiently, and effectively provide the services and solutions that we need?
Yeah, well, you have to ask what lies at the center of the value that we bring to the market, and where can we find partners to more efficiently, in terms of cost, and more effectively in terms of quality, provide services and solutions that we will need that are outside our realm of competence. You want to focus on what is your value add. You don't really want to spend your resources on things that are, outside the quality that you're bringing, the value proposition you're bringing to your customers. So that's the key, really. ISVs must concentrate resources on the core value proposition and get good at that, really good. Now, that's the nugget, I think, from these questions.
Mike, actually, let me do it this way. Let's just go directly to the next slide and start walking through some of these areas, because the bottom line here is you have to figure out what you're good at, as to restate a little bit what we were saying, and what to outsource. As Mike said, it's all about what's the value that you're bringing to market as a development company, as a software company, as a potential SaaS or cloud-based organization. And what we've done is categorize the typical value propositions that ISVs find in our research in each of the 3 areas that we talked about earlier: technology, organizational, and operations. Because again, every aspect of the company changes as you move toward the cloud. Every set of needs that you have changes and often can blindside you, if you will, catch you unawares, and you want to be prepared for what it is that you're going to need to do and where you can typically find good, as Mike put it, cost-effective and high-quality expertise to assist you in managing this transition to the cloud. So in in the technology sector, for example, very seldom do the ISVs that we work with know exactly what it is they need or want to be when they move to the cloud. There is for example, let's call it directional statement. It says we see the need to move to the cloud. We understand that the profitability for the future is there. We understand that the greatest growth for the future is there. We see that that's where our buyers, our customers, our users are pretty rapidly moving to. But we don't necessarily have the capabilities in-house to formulate a strategy and to make that strategy happen. Very fundamental need that tends to be outside of the capabilities, outside of the expertise and the skill set of most technology groups within ISVs. We don't know that much about multi-tenant architectures in some cases, or we're not aware of where the real benefits and advantages are of the different types of architectures and go-to-market paths. Mike mentioned, for example, that it's often possible to bring a cloud-based offering to market a little bit more quickly than with a single-tenant virtualized architecture rather than a true multi-tenant cloud-native architecture. But on the other hand, strategically, what is it that you want to do? Do you want to just get to the market quickly? Do you want to get to the market the right way and be able to build on it? What are the differences? What are the risks? What's your platform selection? How are you going to be developing these solutions? How are you going to move your R&D to a cloud-based environment? Mike, did you have something you wanted to share on the technology side?
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple example, but if you have spec'd out what you want to implement for your technology solution, that's something you can outsource. India Inc. has a lot of organizations that are expert at building multi-tenant solutions, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take, let's say, 18 to 24 months to have a full-blown solution developed. In the meantime, you may choose to launch a first-generation offering, a mere port of an on-premise solution or via virtualization or hosting, but you can't expect that to be competitive long-term, and it will be more expensive to maintain. It's a temporizing position. But as you're developing your solution, most of the successful transitions we've observed have retained, in the native organization, the user interface. That is how customers will interact with the solution. And so they've kept that piece, the GUI piece, or whatever you want to call it, the cloud UI. And then they've left the, back office kind of transactional piece or the functional specs to an outsourced partner. And that's an example of how you can focus on, knowing what you know about how your customers interact with the solution, retain that, but then outsource the other part.
And Mike, that brings up a terrific point as well, because as you look at this basic table, and we have other research that supports this, and if anyone's interested in finding out more about that research, we do encourage you to contact either Mike or myself. Our contact information is distributed with this presentation. As you move from the technology through the organization to the operational aspect of becoming or improving as a SaaS, a cloud provider, the challenges get broader and more numerous. Again, traditionally, technology was seen to be as let's call it the prime obstacle, the first or the most important set of challenges in moving to the cloud. What we have found in our research and what we've hopefully been getting across here is that technology is an important first critical hurdle to get through. But again, you can partner your way through that. The organizational challenges tend to be more numerous and more broad than the technological challenges. Again, we can partner and get past and get through that. The operational aspect is probably where companies are most likely to fall down or stumble or to spend the most time trying to figure out what they can and need to do. As Mike was mentioning, and I want to expand on just a little bit before we go to the last couple of slides, it's the it's managing and making money off of this stuff. It's the compensation development and management, sales and marketing, support management. Where are the support functions going to come from? How can you improve and expand cost effectively on what is probably already a very good customer service and support organization, but one whose demands, whose requirements are going to explode exponentially once you get to the cloud, both in terms of the number of the customers and users out there and in how rapidly and how accurately they require support, they require responses. That service excellence culture, and the ability to manage as a service-oriented organization, all very critical parts of the operational aspect. And again, all of which we strongly encourage to pursue improvement and excellence through select partnerships. It's a 3 to 5 year window of opportunity as we see things right now. If you go back to our first or second slide where we look at how rapidly your customers are moving to the cloud, by year-end 14, 50% of the new software being purchased, acquired, implemented, and used is going to be in the cloud. That's not necessarily an immediate death knell for traditional software, but it certainly is a big knock on the door saying, here's your window of opportunity. We have 3 to 5 years to take advantage of this massive, massive growth opportunity before our competitors do so. So the key to success, as we say here, is planning and understanding how much change really is involved here, making those right choices. What can you do versus realistically, what do you need to partner for? And we all like to think that we know how to do a lot of different things, and especially for smaller and mid-sized software companies, hey, we tend to have built these things ourselves over time, and we're very, very capable at development and management, architecture, partnering, negotiating, billing, monetization, and so on. But again, we're talking orders of magnitude of difference here. No one can do it by themselves. Again, Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, these folks are all bringing in partners to help with their own transitions. That means that you have to be open to new ways of communicating, of managing, of delegating, of partnering with the organizations that can cost effectively provide you with advantageous solutions, even if it's different than the way you've done it before. Change is threatening. Change is difficult, but change is necessary if you're going to move from a traditional software environment to a cloud-based or SaaS environment. Mike, I don't want to end without getting any last words from you, but yeah, what we have here is just, again, we keep emphasizing cloud speed requires help. It requires change, and it requires help with that change. Was there something, any last words of encouragement and advice from you, Mike?
Well, yeah. I mean, just that you don't want to spend your resources on getting up to cloud speed if you can engage with partners who can help you get there. You do want to have the relationship with a customer, but you also want to develop channels, indirect sales that may go through verticals or geographies. But you want the very best the market has to offer in terms of expertise, experience, and innovation. That's what you want to take advantage of. You don't want to waste your time while others move past you. And as Bruce says, you want to take advantage of others already moving at cloud speed.
Okay. Well, that concludes our part of today's program, and what I'd like to do is, again, if anyone has any questions, here's our contact information, and you can find us at Saugatuck, www.saugatuck.com, and we'd be happy to follow up with anybody who has any questions outside of this particular forum. But right now, I want to turn it back over to our friends at SafeNet, Todd and Michelle, to take us through the remaining portion of the program.
Excellent. Thanks, Bruce and Mike. I'll now hand it over to Todd briefly to wrap up the presentation portion of our session so we can move into Q&A. Todd, take it away.
Thanks, Michelle. Just wanted to take a few slides just to tell you about who we are, what we've done, and how to get in contact with us. So at SafeNet, we've, over that year and a half of research into this space, we've been developing technology to help solve the problems that I talked about earlier in the presentation, and that problems that Bruce and Mike expanded upon during their segment of the presentation. So we've come to market with Sentinel Cloud Services, which is a feature-based user provisioning, authorization, metering, and management solution for software delivered as a service. We see this in line with the development and launching of your software service into the cloud, where you first define your service catalog and what features you're going to protect and how you're going to protect them and how you price and package them, how you take on automated provisioning to create contracts and map customers to those contracts, how you control your service so that you're ensured that only those who have purchased their contract are in compliant with it, how to measure, not just measuring for billing purposes, but also measuring for product improvement, and how to adapt your catalog over time and your service over time to help you move at that cloud speed without slowing yourself down and getting to market quicker and more efficiently with your engineering department. We are currently right now in a beta phase of this program, and I really encourage anybody on the phone who has more questions or would like to try our technology and provide feedback and partner with us to go to our sentinelcloud.com website and fill out a short form, and we'll get in contact shortly and be glad to have a follow-up conversation. And the last slide before I mention, before we go into the Q&A section, is really just wanted to let everyone out there know about our Licensing Live page, which is a forum for anyone out there who wants more information on licensing, both from an on-premise and the cloud and virtualization, any hot topic in licensing. You can find out information here, not just SafeNet information, but also industry analyst information like Bruce and Mike on the phone as well. So I'd like to hand it now back to Michelle, and we'll jump into any questions and answer section of the presentation.
Excellent. Thanks, Todd. So we do have a couple of questions that came in throughout the duration of the webinar. If there are any questions that come up while we're in the midst of the Q&A, please don't hesitate to answer them. We have about 10 minutes left of the session, so we'll try to get through as many of these questions as we can. The first question, I think, Bruce, would go to you. In one of your slides, it came in during your partnering slide. It says, at what point in the migration planning and execution process do you think should be appropriate for approaching partners?
It's an almost obvious, but it really is key as soon as you think you need to, because one of the things that we find constantly, and I can't think of any case where it hasn't happened, and I invite Mike to chime in as well. But you never know exactly where or when you're going to need where you're going to need some help. And one of the places you're probably going to need a lot of help if you've never done anything like this before is actually in the planning. So the first thing to do, or one of the first things to do, is to sit down and figure out what is it that we actually want to be here. Do we want to develop software and distribute it, use it, license it, and so on for use through the web? Do we want to be native in the web? Do we want to be both? Do we want to be somewhere else in between? And then start looking for the questions that you don't know the answers to. That's when you start to partner. That's when you start to bring in consultants, or that's when you start to lean on other companies, peers, or even competitors in some cases we've seen that can help you find just the right questions to ask. I think that's the real key, is if you don't know what questions to ask, that's the first place to start looking for partners.
Yeah, Bruce, I would echo that. I would say immediately, if not sooner. I mean, you really you're in a market where there's a lot of demand for partnering. A lot of people looking for partners at the same time. A lot of people trying to hire good people. So the sooner you can really identify the areas where you might need help, the better. The negotiations, the scheduling, and the planning, you really, until you start those discussions, you have no idea how you can plan, depending upon the availability of your potential partners, the pricing, and so on. So there's so many things really to arrange so many things to coordinate. I would recommend, as soon as you intend to do this, immediately identify areas where partnering is likely and get to work on.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. The next question that came in, I think also directed at Saugatuck, says, you mentioned that many of your clients have found it necessary to create a separate organization to bring their cloud services to market. If you do that successfully, then you obviously have one product support organization for on-prem and one product and support structure for the cloud product. When and how have your successful clients merged these two businesses back together?
That's a good question. I don't know.
So far?
Let me tell you what I know about it. And what I know about it is the organizations that have done that have not merged them back together. I mean, you can't really merge sales guys side by side who are getting compensated one way with sales guys who are getting compensated another way. It just doesn't work. It's a different culture you want for service. You want customer service to be approached way differently. I mean, if you're an ISV selling software, you throw it over the wall. Yeah, you make some maintenance changes. You might have a grand upgrade, once a year. But really and truly, that's not the way it happens in the cloud. It's a very different approach toward, product enhancement, solution enhancement. They're very different things. I could cite example after example that will convince you, I think, that you really need to have two separate organizations. Companies that have made the transition successfully have separated them entirely with separate reporting lines right up through the CEO. Some have spun them out into subsidiaries. Some have created a subsidiary organization where both lines, both product and service lines, that is the cloud organization and the product organization, report up separately as separate subsidiaries to a holding company. So there are a variety of ways to do this, but you have to bear in mind that all the metrics that pertain to an on-premise company and all the metrics that pertain to a cloud company, they infuse behaviors, they motivate, you get compensated in very different ways, and so you really don't want to mix and mingle. Bruce?
No, I was just going through a mental list, and I can think of, off the top of my head, a half dozen relatively well-known, in fact, in a couple of cases, very well-known brand names, what we call master brands in the software and services arena, that have not been able to mix and mingle their organizations, whether it's sales or support, marketing, development. Development would be the one area where you would be able to manage, let's say, communication and collaboration most effectively, where frankly you would have to. We have several companies that we know of, including some of our clients, that have, let's call them intermingled development organizations, R&D, but especially development organizations. But their paths split relatively early on in many cases in the development process, depending on what they have architected for their on-premise version versus their cloud version. But all the other areas, off the top of my head, I could name probably half a dozen to a dozen companies that are struggling to try to combine or manage combined operations. I could not name, a single company off the top of my head that has successfully combined and managed operations to that level.
Yeah, I mean, you hear some development organizations proudly boasting that they have a single code base for both their on-premise and their cloud solution, but I frankly don't think that that's necessarily a good idea. I don't really see how you can do that. User interface is going to vary. The functionality should be designed to exploit the cloud. I mean, not simply replicate what you have on-premise. What you want to do is, what can the cloud do that the on-premise solution cannot do? And that is, a cloud solution can easily support geographic dispersion. I mean, you might have, let's say, an accounting solution that can reach across geographies and bring disparate locations together. That you can't do in on-premise without a great deal of expense and network complexity. What about integration? What about the ability to combine your solution with Another cloud solution, let's take the example of Intact, which is an financial accounting company. They have a bidirectional transparency of integration with Salesforce so that anything that gets entered in Salesforce that's relevant immediately appears in the Intact solution and vice versa. So, that kind of capability is uniquely cloud-oriented, and I don't really see how, most ISVs who want to truly exploit the power of the cloud can maintain a single code base or a single development organization. It boggles the mind. I know they try it. I know people do it. I strongly urge you to think about that very hard.
Great. Thanks, Bruce and Mike. So I know that we have run out of time, so I don't want to waste anybody's time or keep anyone over. So what we'll do is we will address the rest of the questions directly via email after the webinar. If you do have any additional questions that didn't get addressed or you didn't get a chance to submit, you can send them to us directly anytime by emailing sas@safenet-inc.com. You can also email Mike and Bruce directly. Their contact information was provided on one of the previous slides. This presentation and all presentations in the webinar series will be available both on demand for those that have passed and registration for those still to come, both on our site, the Sentinel Cloud site, and on the BrightTalk site. Thank you very much for your time, and have a good afternoon or morning.
Thank you, everybody.